and welcome to Friday's edition of the dceu Daily. Today I will be talking about Joss Whedon's reaction to being accused by Ray Fisher of whitewashing on the Justice League reshoots. I will then update you and give you my reaction to some other DC stories, and then I will be answering a DC fan's question. Of course, I have been asking you to tag me on Twitter with your questions. Please do that. Don't be afraid. Nothing to worry about. And when I read out your Twitter questions, I will refer your tag to the people who subscribe to the channel while I'm responding to your questions, so everyone can go and follow you as well. So yes, welcome to Friday's edition of the dceu Daily. Let's go. Exclusive from The Hollywood Reporter. Ray Fisher accuses Warner Brothers execs of racist conversation during Justice League edit. Now, this is an edit, not only of that article, a discussion about the article by Faruqi talking to Ray Fisher, but it's also the response from Joss Whedon's legal team. Now, what you're going to hear in this article is that snippet in Shiraz Faruqi's Forbes article when Ray says that someone come to him saying they wanted to change the colour of their skin tone, and this was a person of colour. That section of the interview has gone, and I will respond to that very shortly. The actor leveled several new claims at the studio and director Joss Whedon in a Forbes interview that was later updated to remove an incendiary quote. In an interview published Thursday, Ray Fisher, the actor who portrayed Cyborg in 2017's Justice League, and this year leveled accusations of misconduct on the set of the film, prompting a Warner Media investigation, spoke at length with Forbes about his allegation. However, later in the day, an incendiary quote attributed to Fisher was removed from the story, and Forbes added an editor's note at the top of the article that read, "This story has been updated from its original version, including the wording of the original headline." Now, you don't do that for nothing. The author of the Forbes interview, Shiraz Faruqi, who has previously contributed to The Hollywood Reporter, declined to comment on the removal of the quote. Again, that's very telling. Before it was deleted, the quote attributed to Fisher had read, "What set my soul on fire and forced me to speak out about Joss Whedon this summer was my becoming informed that Joss had ordered that the complexion of an actor of colour be changed in post-production because he didn't like the colour of their skin tone." Now, this is something that Ray didn't witness. This is something that was brought to Ray. Now, Ray has no way, apart from this person's word for it, to prove this. Now, this isn't a legally binding statement. This is an alleged accusation, and there lies the problem. Whedon, the director who replaced Zack Snyder on Justice League to oversee reshoots, had stayed silent and multiple claims made by Fisher this year. However, on Thursday, an attorney for Whedon and spokesman for the director issued multiple statements in regard to the Forbes story, particularly about the removed quote. Mr. Fisher had no first-hand knowledge to support any of the wild allegations he made about Mr. Whedon and others associated with the film. An attorney for Whedon said in a statement exactly what I just said. He admitted this lack of knowledge to Forbes when stated that he became informed of these claims without identifying who supposedly informed him or when he supposedly learned of the information regarding skin tone changes. In reality, nothing of the sort ever happened. Again, so this is very serious now, because when a representative of the accused comes out and says this, don't forget, as Boris has said here, because this is an article from Boris Kidd, and when he says, and when the lawyer or the legal representative says nothing of the sort ever happened, and he actually can't prove it happened, that is true. And now this is very, very serious for Ray Fisher. Whedon's spokesman elaborated on the editing process for Justice League. Nothing as is standard on almost all films, there were numerous people involved with the mixing the final product, including the editor, special effects person, composer, etc., with the senior colorist responsible for the final version's tone, colors and mood. This process was further complicated on this project by the fact that Zack Snyder shot on film while Josh shot on digital, which required the team, led by the same senior colorist who has worked on the previous films for Zack, to reconcile the two. Now, this is interesting. This is important to understand. Zack shoots on film, Josh shot on digital. So certain tones had to be changed. So what the representative and Joss Whedon is actually saying here, it wasn't about changing the colour of somebody's skin. It was changing the tone because of the way Zack had shot it. This is very, very interesting and important to understand. Stefan Sonnenfeld, the president of Imagine Shot Company 3, whose work ranged from The Mandalorian to Black Hawk Down, was the senior colorist for the movie. He was worked with Snyder on movies such as 300, Sucker Punch, and Man of Steel. The Hollywood Reporter reached out to Company 3 for comment, but did not hear back. The Forbes interview also quotes Fisher as saying that Warner Brothers executives participated in racist conversations surrounding the production prior to Justice League reshoot process. Blatantly racist conversations were had and entertained on multiple occasions by former and current top-level executives at Warner Brothers Pictures, Fisher told Forbes. Decision makers that participated in those racist conversations were Jeff Johns, John Berg, and current Warner Brothers Pictures Group Chairman Toby Emmerich. But Ray, what racist conversations were had? Unfortunately, Ray, you can't back this up, can you? This is the first time Fisher has publicly accused Emmerich of impropriety. Now, it's no surprise to me that he's done this now when we hear he's going to have even more responsibility with Warner Brothers Pictures. In fact, he's the one who's going to be calling the shots. And as I said to you, as I read the interview between Shiraz Faruqi and Ray Fisher, partly Ray's motivations here are political. Has publicly accused Emmerich of impropriety. Warner Brothers did not respond to the Hollywood Reporter's request for comment. On July the 1st, Fisher alleged on Twitter that Whedon had been abusive on set of Justice League, which the filmmaker took over after Zack Snyder stepped down due to a family tragedy. Fisher further claimed that producers Johns and Berg enabled Whedon's alleged behaviour. Warner Media opened an investigation into the claim, but on September the 4th, Warner Brothers released a statement claiming Fisher was not cooperating with the third-party investigators looking to those allegations. Fisher denied this in a statement of his own. Fisher's Justice League co-star Jason Momoa, who has both Dune and an Aquaman sequel set with the studio, publicly backed Fisher in a blistering September the 14th statement aimed at Warner's. In his interview with Forbes, Fisher said that a new third-party investigator has been brought in by Warner Media to investigate, adding that this investigator oversaw accusations of misconduct against former Warner Brothers chairman and CEO, Chief Kevin Sugihara, who exited in 2019. You really have to ask yourself, said Fisher, what's more plausible, that I would purposely torpedo my career by making statements about powerful figures in Hollywood that, if untrue, could be easily refuted, or a handful of people in positions of power said and did terrible things in order to maintain that power during a massive corporate merger, Fisher told Forbes. But again, this is interesting because the kind of take away the whitewashing, which is being denied, that it looks like can't even be proved, right? Take that away. Jeff Johns threatening his career. So what? Happens every day in every line of work. You ain't getting rid of someone. You ain't going to see any blood on anyone's hands over that. And the other stuff that he said, this is the problem. The reason he came out with the whitewashing, because it's compelling with the atmosphere now with Black Lives Matter. He knew it would garner a reaction, but this has been blown away. He hasn't responded yet. Will he respond? It's interesting. Fisher, as he has in the past, said that more details would surface after the investigation. I plan getting much more specific about each of these guys after the investigation is over. This interview is just the abridged version. Fisher's interview comes as he works with Snyder to film additional scenes for Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 4-part HBO Max series that will restore the director's original vision. Well, you saw my reaction when I read out the original interview between Shiraz Faruqi and Ray Fisher. I was disgusted, as anyone would rightfully be disgusted. I can't defend that. And I know after I recorded that video, which I posted last night, there was a lot of division in the opinion. I follow one person who does podcasts, who's a big Arrowverse fan and all DC Everything fan, who was jumping to Jeff Johns' defense, and the others about talking about, it hasn't been proven yet. We have to hold back. And I understand that. Too many things have been said, and it's now problematic. But I understand each person's opinion on each side. It's very, very difficult, and each DC fan is going to take different positions. For me personally, as you know, and as I've just said, I was disgusted with what I read from Ray Fisher. I straight away hashtagged I stand with Ray Fisher. But now these accusations have been blown out of the water and have been denied. As you heard, the legal representative said he has no direct evidence that Joss Whedon did this. But he goes beyond that. He talks about that Zack Snyder shot on film and Joss did it digitally, which would explain why the tone was different. Now, if Ray can refute this and come back at this, this is very, very problematic, though. So it does say a lot that Joss Whedon got his representatives to respond to this. Now, it's interesting because if you look at Joss Whedon, everything that he's done in his career is for social justice. He's fought for women. And I know that Flash laying on top of Gal wasn't very funny and was ill-conceived. I accept that. But when you look at Whedon and everything he's done through his career, it contradicts what he's being accused of, which doesn't mean he's innocent, by the way. We saw him going on the DC Daily mocking Zack Snyder or laughing at other people mocking Zack Snyder. So the guy is toxic. There's no question. An element of this guy is toxic. But these accusations are very, very serious. All I can say is that I will keep you updated. I still stand with Ray Fisher. But as I say, the rest of the accusations are not very compelling if he can't prove the whitewashing. But we will see what happens after the investigation. Now, I tell you what, this is heating up. But for me, I'd rather just focus on the exciting direction of the DCEU. James Gunn reveals what Kevin Feige knows about the Suicide Squad. Kevin knew who all those characters were for months before we revealed them at Fandom. He still knows who the villain is. I think he's pretty trustworthy with his NDA. Listen, I think it's problematic that Feige has all this information, seeing the accusations of Captain America Civil War and how it seemed to copy and paste the concept, the narrative of Batman versus Superman. I'm surprised that Gunn has advertised this fact. I think that James Gunn is very naive in a lot of ways. He doesn't understand the rivalry between Marvel and DC. You don't get it. I've explained to you guys and girls before. It's like supporting a football club. It's like me supporting Man United and you over there supporting Liverpool. We're going to be rivals, bitter rivals. There may even be some hatred there and banter. That's how it works. But you see, these people work on the other side of the track, so they don't get it. And I think, as I say, for him to have, inner knowledge of this is really troublesome for me. But I've been very suspicious for quite a long time that James Gunn's arrival at DC is heralding a new leadership in DC films. Maybe Walter Hamada is just a temporary custodian, and in fact, James Gunn's arrival is a hint that Kevin Feige is actually coming to run the DCEU. A lot of you will go mad about this. A lot of you will say I'm talking shit. But I'm very suspicious indeed. Now, I've just found the whole interview with James Gunn on Empire, and I want to read it because I think it kind of echoes my point that I just made. So, the Suicide Squad James Gunn reconnected with Marvel one day after joining the DC movie. Now, I think this is an interesting interview, so let's go through the whole thing. I may repeat some stuff I've already said, but it's important we go through this with a fine tooth comb. James Gunn found out that he would be able to return for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 one day after he'd already signed up to make the Suicide Squad. Now, this is very, very important, everyone. It seems to me the only reason they brought him back is because they shit themselves that he was going to work for DC, but maybe they naively thought they could get him off the project, but it looked like that Warner Brothers and Disney had to negotiate the scheduling of both films. And I don't think that was Disney's motivation of getting Gunn back. And when we read on, it's very interesting what Gunn has to say about them. For DC, he tells Empire the director was briefly ousted from Marvel in the summer of 2018 after historic offensive joke tweets caused an online storm, with Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn stating that they were indefensible and inconsistent with our studio's values, which, by the way, is true. Well, not their real values. We know what Hollywood studios' real values are, right? But they're the values that people think they hold. With his future at Marvel cut short, Gunn began talks with DC and picked the Suicide Squad as the property he most wanted to get stuck into, though Disney eventually reinstated Gunn in the MCU following a heartfelt apology for his old social media posts. By the way, James apologised for those posts as soon as the stink was kicked up, right? So there was no need to sack him in the first place. In Empire's world exclusive, the Suicide Squad issue featuring Gunn's first interview about his new DC movie, the filmmaker reflected on reconnecting with Disney and Marvel. It is ultimately a happy ending, with Gunn set to finish the Suicide Squad before blasting back to the Guardians, though it did lead to some awkward conversations, and that's what I want to talk about, with his former studio. Now, why were they awkward conversations? Because he wanted to make it abundantly clear to them that it was his baby. You see, they couldn't make the film without him. They were going to bring on another director. They were going to do this. They were going to do that. But they couldn't. He owns too many rights to what they did. It's the same problem Warner Brothers had with the DCEU without Snyder. He had them by the balls. They had to bring him back. But I think he's made it clear that he'll never work for them again. But it'll be interesting what the future holds for Gunn after Guardians 3 and after the Suicide Squad. It was a happy ending, but it was also scary because I actually got the call from Alan Horn long before it was announced. It happened literally the day after I agreed to do the Suicide Squad, says Gunn. After hearing from Horn, Gunn knew he had to update MCU head honcho Kevin Feige on his next project, who, when told it was a DC movie, asked, "Is it Superman?" Now, this is interesting because something you don't know, not many people do know about Feige. He's a massive, massive Superman fan. He used to work with Shula Donner, which is Richard Donner's wife. He's worked with Richard Donner as well. So he has a great love and respect for Richard Donner's Superman the movie. And he's literally shadowed the whole MCU with that kind of tone and mentality. This is my other suspicion why he's going to be coming to Warner Brothers in the end. Gunn stated that it wasn't Superman. That was a possibility, he tells Empire, and explained that he had chosen the Suicide Squad. Feige's reaction, please make a good movie. Just make a great movie. While Marvel and DC have always been rivals, the big two in the comic book industry, Gunn hasn't had to keep his latest project secret from his friends at the MCU. Kevin knew who all those characters were for months before we revealed them. Yeah, that's the thing we've already read. And that's it. Look, it's very interesting, and I thought I would read the whole thing out to you because I'm a bit dubious about the whole situation. I do expect Kevin Feige to come and run the DCEU in the end. And you lot won't see it. You lot may not want it. But why is Gunn really at Warner Brothers? Why is Taika Waititi doing a project over at HBO Max. And you could say, Mick, these are independent filmmakers. They're not. Disney work with the same people all the time. You see it with their announcements. So this is very, very interesting, and we should keep an eye on it and see how it develops. Staying on the subject of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, we do have a little update on the Peacemaker limited series that will be streamed exclusively on HBO Max. Steve Agee will reprise his role as the warden of Belle Reve Federal Penitentiary in HBO Max's Peacemaker series. So and the source for that is Deadline if you want to check it out. So again, it is very, very exciting that Gunn is involved. But again, I do wonder why he's involved and how he got involved. But anyway, I think Gunn's a brilliant storyteller and filmmaker, and I can't wait to see the Suicide Squad or the Peacemaker TV show. And finally today, as you know, in the past few days, I have changed the way I do things here on Big Mouth and my videos. So I've been asking you to be part of the show by tagging me over on Twitter and giving me your thoughts and opinions and questions so I can read them out here on the dceu Daily. Now, one fan has done that. His name is Scott Edwards. You can follow him at Scott MV. So it's at SCOTTE, capital M, capital V. Go follow him. He's been following me for a while and watching the videos, and I'm very grateful to you, Scott. And this is what he had to say. Do you like all the Arrowverse crossovers? Right, first of all, let me tell you how I feel about Arrowverse. For me, Arrowverse was at its purest and most compelling in the first 2 seasons of Arrow and the first 2 seasons of The Flash. They're the ones I know so well. And for me, those first 4 seasons of Arrowverse were so close to and maybe even eclipse Smallville. Now, when I tell you something eclipse Smallville, it means I have a high regard and respect for it. Unfortunately, after those first 2 seasons of those shows, this franchise was watered down and it wasn't in its purest form. So Scott goes on. Are you excited for Superman and Lois? And do you think Supergirl will still appear in the Arrowverse after her show ends? Right. I am excited for Superman and Lois. Now, I'm not as excited as I am for Zack Snyder's Justice League, which Superman will play a big part, or Man of Steel 2. For me, a Superman film is so exciting. Now, I am excited about Superman and Lois. I've spoken on this channel about this show. It's even got a premiere date, and I think that's in February, if I remember rightly. So go check out the information for that. But yes, I am excited for Superman and Lois. It's going to be a very different show. Unfortunately, the Arrowverse people are obsessed with domesticating Superman. So I will be watching to see how this works out. You know, he's moved to Smallville. What kind of hero is he going to be? It actually contradicts everything, actually, that Superman can still be a hero with 2 sons, moving to Smallville, still be Superman. But then Berlanti, in the same way in the Arrowverse crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths, says that Superman has to lose his powers and stay at home with Lois. I'm talking about Smallville's Superman. And he can't be Superman anymore because he's wearing blue kryptonite, right? It's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it? But yes, to answer your question, Scott, I'm very, very excited for Superman and Lois, and I can't wait to see the pilot and see what they've done with this. I think it could go either way. It's either going to be very exciting, very unique, and very different, or it's just going to be boring. We will have to wait and see. Yes, and I do think, and I have also said this on this channel, Scott, that I do believe Supergirl and all the Arrowverse characters have got a life after their shows are cancelled. And I include Stephen Amell's Arrow, who has actually come onto Twitter and confirmed that if he was offered the role again to come back, he would, when he was reacting to the news that Michael C. Hall will return as Dexter. He said, never say never. But anyway, my theory is that all these shows will slowly get cancelled, even The Flash, even Legends. But I don't think that will be the ending for them. I believe they will get straight to streaming movies every so often over on HBO Max. And that includes Supergirl. No, Mel Benoist isn't done with Supergirl. She will cameo on Superman and Lois when she's done. I'm very, very confident about that. But they're all going to get their own straight to streaming movies. And this is what the multiverse strategy is now, Scott. It's about any character being able to cross over with any other universe within the DC, the DCEU movies, Arrowverse, the Green Lantern car show. This is why it's so exciting for me to have a multiverse strategy, and really why I want to focus on the content rather than things like Ray Fisher's accusations that just kind of dull down the excitement, don't they? So, yes, very exciting, Scott. Thank you for all your questions. And as you saw, I answered Scott. I gave him a shout out. So I will do the same for you. All you have to do is tag me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Say whatever you want to me, and I will read it out. And it doesn't have to be about DC. It can be about any TV show that I have knowledge about, any movie that I have knowledge about. Just tag me, and I will give you a good shout out and answer your question thoroughly here on the DC Daily or any other video that I do. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.